Okay, so get this. It's coming out that President Trump picked Ripple to help upgrade banking and the whole financial system for the 21st century. Lord Belgrave dropped some serious details saying Ripple sits right at the center of this new payment setup, and it's not just for the US, it's happening all over the world. I've got a bunch of stuff that backs up what they're talking about, and we're gonna dig into the main points from that post. Plus, there's a ton of other news tied to XRP we'll go over too. Lord Belgrave explained it like this. A few years back, he looked at a secret briefing that was shared under NDA between some European countries. The countries weren't named, but that wasn't the important part. The key idea in the document was that regular people would never see the raw tech underneath. Instead, big institutions would keep putting their own names, their own money, and their own brands on the front end. Especially in Europe, trust would stay with those institutions. What was underneath those branded services was the real focus: standardized settlement systems that worked across borders. Customers wouldn't notice it, but it would all connect smoothly on a huge scale. They wanted neutral infrastructure that could move value instantly once the rules and identity checks were sorted out. Ripple and the XRP ledger got mentioned there, but not as something customers would use directly. It was described as the hidden plumbing that makes everything run. The briefing made it clear, the best tech wouldn't get advertised to the public. It would just get built in, hidden away, and eventually everyone would take it for granted. That's how big institutions think. They don't sell the rails, they sell the services on top. The rails just need to do their job quietly. If this all plays out the way it sounds, most folks will end up using systems powered by XRP one day without ever hearing the name. And from the institution's point of view, that's exactly how they planned it. Then Stellar Rippler jumped in on the post and said pretty much the same thing. President Trump has chosen Ripple for this big banking upgrade. The XRP ledger was talked about in those European briefings as the behind-the-scenes infrastructure. It basically means SWIFT and other institutions will keep their own front-end interfaces, while Ripple and XRP handle the underlying plumbing. That's why Trump mentioned that a lot of Americans don't realize how outdated our current banking system is. The crypto bill is supposed to bring in that 21st century upgrade. At the same time, Brad Garlinghouse from Ripple said they aren't trying to replace banks, they're just giving them better technology to upgrade. April 2026, the Clarity Act is coming, it's happening. Look, there's no public or official proof yet that President Trump has actually picked Ripple or XRP as the new banking infrastructure. The post mixes some real ideas with speculation and claims from insiders. I can't fully confirm everything this person is saying, but what I do know for sure is that whenever the White House holds meetings about future crypto rules in this country, Ripple always gets invited. They have a seat at the table. Same thing with the US-UK Transatlantic Partnership. Who was in the room at Downing Street? Ripple was there. So Ripple keeps showing up in meetings with regulators all around the world, helping shape the policy for this new financial setup. That can't just be random. I don't believe in coincidences. That's how this whole thing is supposed to play out, the invisible hand hiding in plain sight. It's XRP. Now, here's where the European ledger part comes in. Reports say XRP, Algorand, and XLM were checked and verified as part of Europe's new ledger system. It's meant to connect central bank money, regular everyday payments, and digital assets all in one framework. The screenshot talks about XRP and Stellar getting integrated into what's called the European Unified Ledger. It's a DLT-based upgrade for Europe's existing Target 2 securities settlement system, and it sets the stage for tokenized money and assets. So what exactly is this European ledger? It's basically a shared digital financial system that brings together tokenization, central bank money, commercial bank money, and other digital assets onto one programmable platform. It lines up with what the ECB has been pushing for, a European shared ledger or an interoperable DLT network to support tokenized assets and a digital euro while building on their target services. The goal is to turn the old T2S securities settlement layer into a DLT-based system that runs 24/7 and can handle tokenized securities, cash and other assets all in the same place. Crypto writers are saying XRP, Algorand and Stellar have been officially verified on this European ledger, which means their networks are now technically and procedurally recognized as compatible settlement rails for the shared infrastructure. On top of that, the ECB has been running pilots and trials that involve XRP ledger technology. While all this is going on, stablecoins are growing on the XRP ledger, not just US dollars, but euros too, like the real ones. We're also supposed to see a digital yen launch sometime in the next few months. It doesn't feel like a coincidence that these announcements came right after permissioned DEXs went live on the ledger. This auto-bridging between stablecoins on the XRP ledger is turning out to be the most efficient way to trade on the permissioned DEX order book. You've got EURCV from Societe Generale, the smaller EUR from Schumann Financial, and of course RLUSD from Ripple. Then there are USD ones like USDB from Brasa Bank and BRL from Brasa Bank in Brazil. Two different Brazilian stablecoins from them. We're still waiting on Ripple to really build out the full payments ecosystem. RLUSD is one of the few stablecoins that could fill the ecosystem, with XRP acting as the native bridge currency. Someone was saying something similar. We still haven't fully solved cross-border payments and remittances, even though we've talked about it for years in this space. We're making progress, especially with the native rails on the XRP ecosystem, but it's not completely fixed yet. Stablecoins seem like the best shot at finally making it cheap, easy and fast to move money across borders, or from company to employee, or between companies. Only the Clarity Act will really set off the price rally for XRP, pushing it from $5 to $10. Once that act passes, it will officially label XRP as a digital commodity. That removes the old regulatory risk that has kept the price down for years. The big metric here is regulatory clarity plus institutional access. Once XRP is on the same legal level as Bitcoin and Ethereum in the US, big institutional investors and cautious banks that have been sitting on the sidelines will start holding it. Moving into that $5-10 range would be catch-up growth, bringing XRP's market cap more in line with other major clear digital assets. Then there's the operational utility tier, where the price could hit $15 to $30. This scenario assumes full regulatory clarity leads to XRP actually getting plugged into US domestic payment rails, used by top-tier banks for international or internal liquidity. The key metric is integration with US banking networks. For banks to settle huge transfers instantly, the liquidity pool has to be deep. At current prices, you'd need a massive amount of XRP to move billions without crazy volatility and slippage. But once it reaches $20 or higher, the asset gets thick enough to handle multi-billion-dollar banking settlements without issues. And then there's the most bullish case, peaking at $100 or more. In this hypothetical, the Clarity Act lets XRP become the main liquidity layer for the entire US banking network. The price would have to scale up to match the total value being moved. Honestly, if that actually happened, the FOMO and limited supply would probably push the price even higher than that, but we'll have to wait and see how it all unfolds. We're also getting fresh info from Diana and others on X. The Dubai government put $5 million worth of real estate on the blockchain using the XRP ledger, and now $7.8 million in property tokens are tradable. The Dubai Land Department just launched Phase 2 of its real estate tokenization project. This lets people do controlled secondary market trading of tokenized properties straight on the XRP ledger. After a successful pilot that tokenized 10 properties worth over $5 million, about $7.8 million in tokens can now be resold in regulated secondary markets. I know it doesn't sound like huge money yet, but you have to start somewhere. It was a pilot, it worked, and now they're moving to Phase 2. This could open the door for a lot more value. It also shows other countries and places that you can tokenize real property on the XRP ledger and actually trade it. It's a real proof of concept that's now moving into the utility stage, and I love seeing that. All the on-chain transactions are still running on the XRP ledger, secured by Ripple custody and in partnership with Control Alt. Reese Merrick chimed in saying he's thrilled about the Phase 2 launch for the Dubai Land Department project. It builds on the pilot, and now controlled secondary trading is live for those tokenized properties on the XRP ledger, all secured by Ripple custody. Bank XRP also noted that the secondary market trading is powered by Control Alt's infrastructure, secured by Ripple, and built on the XRP ledger. Real estate liquidity is starting right now. On another front, Soil is bringing real-world asset yield to RLUSD. They launched the first real-world asset-backed yield protocol on the XRP ledger, giving institutional-level returns to RLUSD holders. The first $1 million in pools got filled in under 72 hours. Meanwhile, the XRPL has officially flipped Solana in terms of tokenized real-world asset value. The utility of Ripple's stablecoin is growing really fast. Why does this matter? It turns RLUSD on the XRP ledger from just a payments tool into a regulated yield and real-world asset platform, the exact space Ripple wants to dominate in institutional crypto. Soil is the first compliant reward asset stablecoin offering 5 to 8% fixed APR on vaults that are funded with RLUSD and backed by things like private credit and tokenized US treasuries. This instantly upgrades RLUSD from a plain transactional stablecoin into a yield-bearing asset with the kind of fixed-income features that banks and funds actually want when they park big money on-chain. That first million in vault capacity filling up in less than 72 hours shows there's real demand. It gives Ripple a clean story. Regulated money plus regulated yield on the XRPL isn't just talk anymore, it's actually happening. There's also this chart analysis looking at XRP potentially hitting $8, $13, and 27. It's based on Fibonacci extensions from the 2020 low all the way back to the 2018 all-time high. These are targets I've been watching for 4 or 5 years now. Standard Chartered, one of the big UK banks, has its own targets around $7, $12.60, $19, and $28. All those numbers line up really closely with the Fibonacci levels. Most are within $1 or so. It doesn't guarantee anything, of course, but there's some nice confluence there with targets I've had on my charts forever. People always accuse me of just making them up, but no, XRP actually hit the 1.272, 1.414 and 1.618 extensions in the last cycle, so it could do it again.